Welcome back to another episode of the Instant Celebrity Maker. Today I have the great pleasure to invite Jim Beach, the man who comes from the special peach of Atlanta, Georgia, who's lived in Asia. We just had a moment to talk about that before the show. Welcome to the show today, Jim.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your background. You worked for Coca-Cola, you were in Japan. I mean, that's all very interesting because most Americans, I find it startling, never leave America.
Well, I've left America a lot. I actually did high school in Spain and some college in Japan. Also in college, I was able to sail across the Atlantic Ocean on a schooner, 135-foot schooner. And so I was doing quite a few things. And my first job out of college was working for the Japanese government, helping do trade promotions and helping American companies get into Japan. Then did my MBA in Hawaii and Japan, a joint program. Worked for Coca-Cola for a while in Tokyo, got fired from Coca-Cola, and that began my entrepreneurial career. My Coca-Cola mentor, actually the man who invented Diet Coke, the chemist who actually did it, got to know me very well and said, Jim, you don't belong here. You're not right for here. You belong as an entrepreneur. And I had never in my life thought of that, conceived it. It was devastating news. I thought my world was over and I was 22 years old. So.
Well, we learned, I think pain causes change. And oftentimes it's uncomfortable in the beginning. And then we realize it's out of our control and we just have to adapt and move on. And that's
exactly. Very, very true. Well said.
Now, I didn't know this about you. ¿Hablas español?
Sí, yo hablo.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later. I lived in Latin America for a bit myself, so we'll chat about that post show. So let's get right in. How would your friends describe you, Jim?
I don't know. Hopefully they would say that I'm a little bit eccentric, but nice to them. Have a loyal cadre of friends that I've had for, my entire life. So they've seen all the goods and bads. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I was, when people ask me, well, how would your friends describe you? I say, well, 6 feet and handsome with the blind ones. So what's your greatest accomplishment?
I have 4 wonderful, beautiful children and a beautiful wife.
So you have 5 accomplishments. That's great.
That's right. And 2 dogs that don't kill me.
All right. Well, then then that certainly is the right box to tick. Now, you told me the story a little bit about what happened with Coca-Cola at 22. You had a major pivot in your life, at least from where you thought you were going to go to where you have gone. What do you wish you had known when you started out? Let's go back to that point of that 22-year-old.
Well, even before that, I really want to be an architect. I'm sort of like George Costanza. I'm a failed wannabe architect. And I would love to have been an architect. I eventually did get into architecture school and spent a couple of years doing that, but I didn't make it through that either. I started a business to be able to support myself to go to architecture school. I was hopeful that I could run a business 3 months a year and then go to architecture school 9 months a year. And that worked for a while, but eventually the 3-month-a-year business became 12 months a year. And so I was unable to complete my architecture degree. And I think that, the high school system did a horrible job of saying, Jim, you collect architecture magazines. Why don't you think about that? No one ever said that to me. And I wish I were an architect, Mitch.
Okay. Well, you went down the route you were at, and here you are. You've arrived, and I see all the logos behind you, the Pod 24, and tell us about that. A little bit off the script of questions here, but I find it interesting.
Pod 24 is my newest business, and I think it's absolutely genius. Imagine satellite radio where you can go to different channels and get different buckets of information. But if you want to listen to a particular thing, you go to a particular place. Well, let's take that, put it on the internet, and replace it with podcasts. I am very interested in the 80% of the market that's never listened to a podcast. And you say, Mom, listen to my podcast. And then you start describing, here's the 55 steps you need to do it. You download it, and then you put it on this player, and then you pull up my mom has 55 opportunities to fail. What if there was one click listening? I could, with one click, listen to all of the French cooking podcasts that I wanted to. And Pod 24 is simply that. It's a collection of stations. Each station has 20 to 30 podcasts on the topic of the station. So if the station is talking about University of Georgia football, and Mitch, this will blow you away, there's 75 podcasts that do nothing but talk about University of Georgia football.
Wow.
If I wanted to listen to that, I could go to this station, one click, it starts a podcast, and it's just like a TV show or radio. If it's the middle of the hour, you get the middle of the podcast. But then at the top of the hour, a new show starts. But it has the huge advantage over TV that, well, I really like this guy. I want to go and see his entire repertoire and get he just referred to the show he did last week. I want to listen to that. Click, boom. Now I'm on the podcaster's website. I can see their entire library and inventory. So it's a super easy way to find podcasts, find topics of interest for the neophyte. And then for us podcasters, it's a great way to get more listeners. What do you think, Mitch? What do you think of the idea?
I love it, and we're going to talk about that in depth after the show because you caught my interest. You knew what you were doing, Jim. You're very strategic, and you're the Atlanta gentleman who just sold me. Of course I want more information. Okay, but this is your interview, so I'm going to continue. What are you curious about right now?
Ooh, so many things. Global warming and the pandemic and how to be a better parent. And, and here's something I'm really fascinated with, Mitch, because it just happened to me. I'm fascinated with the way one app can change your life. Think about that. An app, you download Waze or something like that, and you get home 3 minutes faster. Well, we downloaded an app, I saw it on TV, called Swim Please, Swim PLY, and it's Airbnb for swimming pools. And it allows you to rent your swimming pool for 2 or 3 hours to anybody who needs a swimming pool for 2 or 3 hours. Well, we're making $6,000 a month extra out of it by renting our swimming pool. Our pool is pretty nice, Mitch. And $6,000 a month, no matter how rich you are, it's a little chunk of change.
That's a steak dinner for a big family.
It is. And it's awesome because our kids can now see money being made. They don't really understand FBA or Amazon sales or selling a book or getting a sponsor on a podcast or getting paid to speak. They don't understand that, but they understand that person right there paid $55 to be in our pool. And now they are forced to help get the pool ready. Hey, kids, go get the pool ready. Put out the cushions. Let's get the leaves out. Make sure the lights are on. And our kids, and I have kids, Mitch, in 3 different decades, I'm proud to say, our kids are learning entrepreneurship and responsibility, as a 5 and 6 year old. So I love that.
Is this your app? Is this your app?
No, I'm just a user. I'm just a random user. Blown away how an app has changed my kids' learning opportunities, and I like $6,000 a month.
I think anybody would, unless, you have strangers in your pool, but I think it's worth the cleaning. Big deal. That pays for the pool, man, and then some. And
you know what?
Drinks.
And those people are so happy. They're so happy. They're having so much fun. They're having birthday parties and bachelorette parties and romantic date nights in the hot tub with champagne and roses and reconnecting with their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend. Um, those are warm, heartwarming stories happening in our backyard.
Well, that's fantastic. You're a consumer. You're a consumer caring person. You're caring for the consumer. All right. So, what have you failed at?
Ooh, so much.
That's
Uh,
great. That shows the sign of success. If you failed a lot, you've taken risks and you've succeeded.
well, as I said, I have children in 3 decades, so I have failed at long-term planning. How about that?
Okay.
We could start there. I've also been $10 million in personal debt before. I know what that feels like, and that's quite an accomplishment. It's not easy to get $10 million in personal debt,
Ouch.
but I've done that and come back to survive from that. I've had, they always talk about entrepreneurs who have a 1 out of 10 chance of failure or success. 1 out of 10 businesses succeed. Well, I've started, I don't know, 15 businesses or something like that, and not all of them did 500 employees, but a couple did, and some turned out well. But I've also lost a bunch of money too. The whole idea of doctors or being able to schedule an appointment with a doctor online today, we consider that standard. I tried it 20 years ago, and the doctors thought I was crazy, and lost a bunch of money doing that. I was just at the
You were
right
too early.
place, very much at the wrong time.
And I
So,
wrote the very first book on podcasting 25 years ago, and it was too early. It's too
yes,
early.
very much too early.
It's too early. And I couldn't even give it away. People thought I was nuts. And I'd heard about this tech. It was about, let me see, about 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, before it even started, and it went through a wave and up and down. So it happens. So I can appreciate that. Here's my favorite question, Jim. And I think you're going to like this. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, and they must be in the next life or passed on, who would you choose and why?
Jesus, got to be Jesus. Who would be more interesting than that? You can ask really important questions like why, how, and who.
Yeah, I think I've heard of Jesus. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's an easy answer then. All right. And now let's
After
get
that, Thomas Jefferson,
okay. All right.
because he
So
was
those
an architect.
got it. Now, in terms of your professional life, who's been your most important mentor?
Got to be my father. He was a medical physician, but an entrepreneur. He was the rare doctor that was better at business than medicine, and he's the type person that when you're $10 million in debt, that he's a good person to have in the room. He's unfortunately had to bury one of his children, and when you do things like that, being $10 million in debt take perspective. And so my dad has been by far most influential person in my life in
Okay.
every respect.
Okay. That's great. And now let's go back to the 18-year-old Jim before he starts his college, let's say. And what would you provide in terms of advice to the younger Jim?
Whew, I don't know. I feel like I've come a long way. I don't really like the 18-year-old Jim very much. Tried to move away from that person as much as possible. That person is an introvert, and I'm still an introvert, but I love being more extroverted. Life is easier. It's easier to sell something, I think, as an extrovert. Listen like an introvert, but act a little bit more like an extrovert if you want to sell something. And maybe I would tell the 18-year-old boy about a couple of girls not to date or marry, but, stuff like that.
I understand that. I wish I could go back. Well, we'll talk about that post show, but I get it. You've got still you're clearly looking forward. That's the sign of being young versus old. older people are always talking about the past, and I believe you're still looking forward. You got young kids at home, and what's your plan to achieve your goals? I'm going to give you 2 years. I don't like to project 5-year, 10-year goals. That's too long. The world is changing too rapidly. So if you were to go 2 years out, what do you want to see?
Right around here somewhere, I have it written down.
Oh,
I don't know if I can find it right now. It's around here somewhere, though, Mitch. I have a business card with my name on the front, and on the back, I have my goals by category. I have spiritual goals, fiscal goals, physical goals, emotional goals, relationship goals, goals with my wife, goals with children, and then business goals. I want this Pod 24 thing to succeed. I'd like it to have 2,000 customers in 2 years. If it does, it takes over the world. It's bigger than Google. I would like to continue our backyard business, renting the pool. We're also going to start an Airbnb. I've built a killer tree house, and I want to rent it out now, mostly just for the fun of it. You know, it's
well, and you're teaching your kids too with this.
Yes.
How to be an entrepreneur, which is valuable.
And how to build a tree house.
There you go.
And those are all good skills to know. So I would like that, and you know, I'd like my children to continue to be happy and thrive and have their careers go well.
Okay. And when you have a challenge from life and they do come up, how do you handle it? How do you overcome this? Acting as the sage today.
The first thing, and I think this is maybe the most important thing, is learn how to live long-term with long-term bad things hanging over your head. You have to learn how to go to sleep at night no matter what you are afraid of the next day. So I've been $10 million in debt. That doesn't resolve itself overnight. It takes years to resolve stuff like that. And so you can't go on and be happy day in and day out if you don't learn to put things away and not think about them. And Mitch, this may sound crazy, but at night when my mind is racing on things that I don't like it to race on, I have a standard daydream that I involve myself in. I daydream that I have just been selected, not elected. I didn't even have to run. I have been appointed president, and I am now a benign dictator in the United States. And whatever policy I want happens to work and get 99% approval. And so, you know, and that's my little daydream. And by the end of that daydream, I'm usually asleep. And it takes my mind, and instead of worrying about the bills or the horrible telephone call that has to happen tomorrow or the horrible meeting, which I've already thought about, I say, you know, it's 1:30 in the morning. It's time for me to go to sleep and to put my mind somewhere else. And one thing to overcome life's bad things is learn to compartmentalize it in your mind territory. You know, everyone talks about mindfulness and all of that. It's true. Don't allow yourself to think the bad stuff. Figure out a way to distract your mind. If it's reading, or I collect stuff, and if I, you know, am playing with my collections, I tend to get distracted and not think about bad things.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure if you've already published, but if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about? You're an educated guy. You have books on up there. All right, here we go.
I won't pull them out if you're going to make fun of me for it, Mitch.
That's okay. I'm going to make fun of you.
That's okay. I'm very, very.
We've known each other for 20 minutes, so it's really important to tease you.
School for Startups was the first book published by McGraw-Hill.
It's
a
major publisher.
Really, really well, and has about 110 reviews on Amazon. The important thing about that book that I think is interesting, Mitch, is I sent one proposal to one publishing company, and 1 week later I had a contract with McGraw-Hill. I didn't send 100 proposals and get 99 rejections. One letter, 1 week, one contract. And that there's a lesson there, and the lesson is that the thesis matters. The ability to sell it in one line matters. And we sold that book with one line. I said, here's what the thesis is, and the publisher said, I want to read a defense of that. And that was it. And we said, okay. So that book is a defense of the thesis that entrepreneurship is not about creativity, risk, or passion, and that creativity, risk, or passion should be excluded when you are having an entrepreneurial discussion. And when you do that, anyone can go and make $100,000 a year. Second book was on how to get on a podcast as a guest.
Oh, I'm going to buy that.
And it's just a real simple little book, and it comes down to having an interesting pitch and then how to use the pitch and how to get on hundreds and hundreds of shows. And then Mitch, here's one of my proudest little experiments. And we were talking about failure. This experiment failed, but the next time it won't. So last year before the election, I've always wanted to write a book of fiction, a spy thriller. And it was right before the election, maybe in the middle of the summer. And I decided that with all of the things going on with China and the pandemic, now is the time to write a spy thriller. But my wife, she was very concerned that I'd be typecast. So she said, you can't have Biden or Trump as the alone villain or hero. So I wrote 2 books, one for Biden fans, one for Trump fans and one for Biden fans. And the books tell the story of the war that happens between the United States and China because of COVID-19. It could very well still happen. But Mitch, I didn't write a single word of either book. I outsourced everything. And what it is each chapter is like a newspaper story. And so I went to newspaper journalism students around the world and said, I need 500 words from CNN, assuming that Donald Trump has just been indicted for this, his daughter, and these 8 people get arrested, and he's looking at 150 years in jail. Write that article, because that's chapter 27. And then I took all of these articles and put them into the book, and they tell the story that I wanted to tell. And I was able to publish 2 books in under 1 month.
Boy, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. You know, I'm going to book you for another podcast interview just talking about the publishing industry, because I've got my own story there as well. I'm published with John Wiley and Sons, and what
nothing's more impressive. They're almost as good as McGraw-Hill.
No, I think McGraw-Hill gets the nod there. I will concede. But when did you
work? Let me say this: having worked with McGraw-Hill, Wiley gets the nod.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't have a bad experience with Wiley, but I think in terms of prestige, yeah, it was 2008 when my book came out. When did your first come out?
Right around and then.
Okay.
Maybe 2011.
Yeah, I was a little bit, but I wasn't able to promote it because I had just started a very big shift in my life, and I'll go ahead and say it. I don't care. It was I started on a severe divorce. I had married my lawyer, and I got divorced from it, so it was kind of a challenge. But I learned a lot through the publishing process back then, and it's something I would love to discuss in the future because I think it's so
2011.
important.
I would love to have that conversation.
Okay.
And then we'll have another one about divorces.
Oh,
you know
boy.
Why they're so expensive, Mitch?
Because they're worth it.
Yes.
And I married my lawyer. That it shows you how smart I am. So
well, I'm even worse than that. I'm the college professor that married their student.
Oh, naughty, naughty, naughty. Okay, well.
Yes. However, let me say this. She was a graduate student. She was 27, or she was 28 when we married, not a 18-year-old.
And how old were you?
I had just turned 40.
Okay, so, that's not terrible.
But here's an interesting fact. Our families go back 60 years. Our parents went to medical school together. So our families have known each other since the 50s.
Okay. You're not married to her anymore, I take it.
No. She's my second. She's the one that works. She's awesome. We're still married.
Okay, well, that's great. So what's one question you wish I'd asked in this interview? Because you've answered things very well. But
Well, I haven't had a chance to defend my thesis that entrepreneurship is not about creativity, risk, or passion, which is an interesting defense. But we haven't talked about that. So that's the only thing that we didn't get to.
Well, then tell me about it.
Creativity is awesome, but 93% of businesses are copies of existing businesses. So why take the extra burden onus of creating something new? Why not just go find someone who's doing something cool and copy it and just do it better than they are? I don't violate copyrights, trademarks, or patents, but I am very, very comfortable to take your idea and do it better. Risk, I don't like risk. Risk is for bungee jumpers and things like that. And if you can't prove that your idea is a good one for under $5,000, maybe you shouldn't start that idea. I can find a guest on my show who has started a business in every industry except maybe airplane manufacturing for under $5,000. You tell me I need $200,000 to start my restaurant, and I'll show you the guy who will prove to you that you're a moron because he started his restaurant for $2,000 and now owns 200 restaurants. So I'm not big on the risk. I think you can prove your idea for much cheaper. And I reserve passion for the church, the synagogue, the mosque, and the bedroom, and occasionally the living room, and out by the pool. Passion is awesome for your family, but you should be much more passionate about something than work. No matter what I'm doing, it's still work. No matter how much fun I love being on a podcast with you, Mitch, it's still work. I'm still not at the beach with my kids. I'd rather be at Disney with my kids and my wife. Some of you would rather go down the Colorado River or be at the Louvre, whatever. That should come before your business. And so I am not passionate about the thing. I am passionate about the process. I love being an entrepreneur. I love the freedom. I love the opportunity. I love to do what I want, when I want, wearing what I want. I love not caring about the man. But I will sell anything if it's mostly moral and a little bit legal, if I can make some money from it. I have had businesses that I am zero passion about, but they made money. What's wrong with that, Simon Sinek? Why do I have to have some earth-solving business? Why can't my gizzard business just make $100,000 a year and keep the lights on for 4 or 5 families? Isn't that enough?
No, I love that. Yeah, Simon Sinek is not necessarily accurate with his assessments. He's got he's a good speaker. He's convincing, and knowing your why. All right, that's part of it, but it's not everything. And it's almost like, yeah, it's almost what the book that annoys me, but it's also incredibly brilliant. And I have to applaud him because it leads people down the wrong path. Is the 4-Hour Workweek by Timmy Ferriss.
That's exactly what I hoped you would say, Mitch, because I hate that book too. I hate that book.
No way can you be successful at 4 hours a week. I'm sorry. That's a pipe dream, and you're smoking crack because you cannot. I've been doing this too long. I'm 61 years old, and I know the lay of the land, and nobody I know that is truly successful works 4 hours a week. And pisses me off when people say that.
Crack, yesterday I interviewed a drug dealer who made $1 billion selling legal ecstasy until they changed it and made that illegal. He just published a book about it. Guess what he was doing? Working 20 hours a day. So even when you sell crack, you have to work 20 hours a day.
Yeah, you may be passionate about it, but you also are chasing the paper in that vocation.
The 4-hour work week.
It's a big misnomer, and it annoys me, and I'm possibly going down a rabbit hole, but it seems by your head nodding, you tend to agree when these people, some of them, the people who bought that book, hook, line, and sinker, think that they can do business by email or texting only and don't want to get on the phone. I mean, I find that with some of the people of that generation, like, no, I want to be called. I need to talk. Sometimes talking is necessary. And these people say, no, it's not efficient. Well, you've just efficiently lost my business because you're unwilling to talk to me. So that's interesting. All right. Now, how do you promote your personal and company brand, the Jim Beach brand? Because that's your site is jimbeach.com.
I'm not doing anything special or anything unique. I'm producing a lot of content and trying to tweet and post and stuff about it. And I do a mediocre job of the social media stuff. And, right now I'm producing lots of content and hoping people find it by, doing the standard stuff. Going out and talking is the best way, and none of us can do that right now. And I think that, the whole speaking industry is going to be smaller in the future. I think that, conventions are going to be smaller. And so, we're all sitting here trying to find new ways. The most important thing that I have found about it is that despite what I say about passion, that a lot of it comes down to finding a message that resonates and that you can go out there and talk about with sincerity. So my wife, it drives her crazy, but every time I see a pregnant woman, I almost accost her, trying to get her to buy a book called Baby Wise. I didn't write it. I don't have anything to do with it. But you know what? All 4 of my babies slept through the night by 5 weeks. And all 4 of my adult children are amazing sleepers and have amazing dispositions. And I credit this one book, and I just want everyone in the world to read it. Every pregnant woman in the world needs to read it. I'm passionate about that, and I have nothing to do with it.
Okay.
But you know what? If you're pregnant, I'm going to be telling you about Baby Wise and explaining why it works. So,
okay. Well, how can I support you? I know that they can get in touch with you at jimbeach.com. I mean, I certainly want to talk to you about Pod 24 on a personal level for myself, and I think it's something I can refer to other podcasters, it sounds like, to be part of a collective, which is great.
The normal stuff. I'm at Entrepreneur Jim on Twitter. Very active on LinkedIn, and if you want to reach out to me, I accept all requests, and my real email address is right there in my LinkedIn profile, and so you can really email me, and I really answer my own emails. And one of my goals for this year, and I still can't find that little piece of paper, my business card, Mitch, one of my goals for this year was to go to bed email 0 every night. No lingering emails.
I can't even imagine that.
I failed already, but I'm still trying.
Okay. And what would you say about your guest experience today?
Today I've had a great time. So it's been a fantastic experience today.
Okay, super.
I appreciate being included.
All right. What would you say is your final word, Jim?
If you want to start a business, it's probably easier than you think to find an idea if you just read Entrepreneur Magazine and copy something out of it. Don't spend more than 1 week's vacation trying to validate the idea, and be extra passionate in the bedroom.
Well, and I love the few takeaways that I'm going to give a recap on is boring businesses, there's nothing wrong with them. If you can make money with boring businesses, and you don't have to be passionate about your business. It doesn't matter.
I've sold a lot of purses.
Yeah, well, you don't need to be passionate about it. That's great, because I don't know anybody that's passionate about being in the dog scooping, the poop scooping business. But it's a need, you fill it, and you profit. Other people don't want to do it. The other thing you talked about was, discrediting or actually bringing the reality of the 4-hour work week. It does take hard work and effort. And I totally agree. We're in congruous, we're in parallel with our thinking there. The other is this whole part about go ahead and working with what works already. It's been proven. There is a great t-shirt. I can't take credit for this quote, but it summarizes what you said, Jim. Don't be a pioneer. They end up with arrows in their backs. And, that's what happens. If you try to invent something and be creative and be new, you're likely going to fail, because Indians have been shooting arrows for a long time, and you're going to get arrows in your back if you're a pioneer in many cases. Steve Jobs is the exception. Even Mark Zuckerberg, he stole the idea from the twins, the Vanderhoff brothers. That was their idea. He just took it and tweaked it and got away with it. But
MySpace was already out there anyway.
Exactly.
Can I have 1 more minute to add one more thing to the passion
100%,
conversation?
100%.
So think of life like a corridor, a hallway. You're standing at the entrance to a long hallway, and you can see down the hallway, and you can see doors to the left and doors to the right, but you don't know what's in the room. The only way to find out what's in that room is to start walking down the corridor. And then you discover things. I didn't know that I liked radio or was going to enjoy that until I had discovered that I should write a book. I never in a billion years thought I would do that. That only happened because I was walking down the path aggressively of entrepreneurship, and I'm able to get all these new opportunities and new things that are possible because of the path that I've already walked down. That doesn't happen unless you start walking down the path. Those cool passion things are in those rooms. I've discovered passion. It was just in the 12th room. You got to start walking down the path to discover.
I love it. Love it. Jim, you've been a great guest. Thank you. And we're
so much
definitely
for
going to
having
do
me.
another one on the whole publishing side, because rarely do I find somebody that's had that. You've got a deep background like I do in it. And I'd love to discuss it because I think it's a topic worth listening to and discussing. Thank you. We'll see you next time, Jim. You were a great guest today on the Instant Celebrity Maker.